Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange. Stories, tools, and wisdom shared by leaders for leaders to help you raise the bar on your own excellence and release the potential inside of you. Now, here's today's show. Welcome. This is the Nonprofit Exchange, and I'm Hugh Ballou. This is a place where we explore leadership strategy and systems that help mission-driven organizations create lasting impact. Today, we're talking about one of the most important issues facing nonprofit leaders, why our mission message is often ignored, and even the mission itself, even when that matters deeply. Our guest is Sally Mildren. She and her team work with nonprofits, rural health organizations, and mission-driven brands to build connection through strategy, storytelling, brand clarity, and customer experience. Their work is grounded in the idea that marketing is both art and science, and that belonging, trust, and recognition are essential to standing out in a crowded and noisy world. Today, we will look at the brain science behind attention, trust, and action. Sally will help us understand why people may opt out of messaging subconsciously, why recognition is different from representation, and how nonprofit leaders can communicate in a way that captures attention, touches emotion, and moves people to act. Sally Mildren is the CEO and Chief Strategist of CommonWell Marketing, a strategy-driven marketing firm serving nonprofits, as I said, rural health organizations, and mission-driven brands. Based in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and soon to move to Montana, Sally helps leaders connect the dots of their strategy for maximum impact with focus on brand clarity and messaging, storytelling, customer experience, and sustainable growth. Sally is also the host of the Leadership Cafe podcast, where marketing leaders, nonprofit professionals, and small teams gather for industry insights, candid conversations, and practical strategies for leading with confidence and making real impact. Sally's work brings together the art and story of science and how people respond to belonging, empathy, trust, and recognition. Sally, welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange today. So, talk about this principle of why good missions still get ignored.
Well, thank you for having me here. I know that it's not because your mission is the problem. It's because people have not felt connected to it yet. And that's often the biggest gap that we are addressing with clients and with folks we know in these fields is they're talking in a way that is not reaching the people they want to engage. And that's what this conversation today is all about.
So, there's a lot of data out there, and people get flooded with information. So, what's
Yes.
happening in the brain when people scroll past or tune out a message that actually might be important?
Well, the brain, to start with, is sorting 11 million bits of information per second. So, about 95% of the decisions that we make are subconscious. And much like the algorithms you hear about on social media, the brain is sorting what it sees based on your previous choices and experiences, what you have been paying attention to and have indicated is important to you, and to things that are relevant for you. So within 2 to 8 seconds, your brain has processed this message and decided, nope, that's not for me. Or, oh, hey, that might be interesting. I'll pay attention a little more. And it is something that we can't control how people see and respond, but we can order our communication and our posts, our imagery, the use of colors, all of that in a way that gets the attention. And typically that pathway is through emotion.
Ah, ah. So, what's wrong with our messaging? How do we make it better?
Well, by and large, it's true of healthcare and nonprofits. Most of our messaging is about us. It's talking about our programs, our systems, our wins, our award, our me. And what the brain is looking for is, do I belong here? Is this message for me? Is this talking to me? And there's this big differentiation between, we know people kind of like you, we've got folks like you, and I know what it's like to be you. There's a big difference in the way we message things so that I recognize myself in your message. Now, that is really hard for people to come to, and honestly, simplifying what we're saying is some of the hardest work in marketing. I think I think it was mm, Edison or one of the big inventors who said, I would have written you a shorter note, but I didn't have time. And I think that the quote is very poignant to marketing, that we have to be able to dial our message in, to simplify, and to be looking in our mind's eye at the face of one type or person in the audience rather than screaming into the masses, which our news is already doing. So you have no chance in that fight.
Oh my word. That's both attributed to both Mark Twain and George Bernard
Mark Twain.
or George.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's out there. Also, the American transcendentalist Thoreau said to Emerson, "Simplify, simplify, simplify." To which Emerson responded, "I believe one simplify would suffice."
Yeah.
So we tell people all about what we do, and we
Mhm.
overload them with that, and they don't really understand why it's important first. So there's an order to the details that we share with people,
Mhm.
and also the amount. Can you speak to those two issues, the order of those and the amount of data?
Sure. I mean, just from a pure neuroscience standpoint, our brain responds to faces. It responds to simple images, to fewer words, which is difficult. In some neuroscience studies, they've had some wearable EEG devices on, and they've identified that the posts or the ads that have a very simple image with faces, fewer words, outperformed others by 20%, sometimes more than that. And so it's this idea of, and I think in an election year, we all can appreciate it feels like more is more is more. Um, in a world where there's just so much noise, we need to be able to see that image and be, oh, wow. Or see that headline and be able to that quickly know, oh, I want to know more about that. This is something important to me. And more doesn't make that possible. It's often that stripping away of the extra words. You know, a billboard, the rule of thumb in marketing is 7 words or less for a billboard. So I think we should do that on a social post too. 7 words or less, because now that fast I know, oh, this is really interesting.
And that's my rule for PowerPoint slides. 6
Hmm.
words is plenty.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
crowd it. We crowd it. So, a good example of that is the technology companies give you all this why and this fizzle and this sizzle, and Apple just gives you a simple message. Sometimes just an
Hmm.
image. I noticed you had an Apple
Hmm.
on your website, but
Hmm.
the most valuable company in the world. Well, the simple. And so
Hmm.
it's this is we overcompensate. We want more attention. We create more content when that's not really the answer, is it?
No, it isn't. And I think one thing that nonprofits easily slip into is, ooh, okay, our endowment of the arts grants are gone. Our this is gone. Finances are scary. So now we just load at every outreach table you have out in the community, in your social feeds, in your emails. You have 6 calls to action. you're just campaign after campaign after campaign with a new call to action. And it, it would behoove organizations to take a deep breath, to not panic, but to be really intentional about what is it that we need and who are the most likely people to engage, and what is the message that will mean something to them, not us. And there's this kind of collective panic that we do. I used to work with my teams all the time. They'd go to a outreach fair or whatever, or a community event, and set up a table, and they'd have every brochure for everything we ever did, and some poor soul would wander to the table and they would get a word vomit of everything from 1492 forward. And it's this desperate, off-putting energy to it that really, if we are there and we know this event is about women's health, maybe we'll just pick something. So I'm not going to bring anything but women's health. And I'm going to have one thing they need to know about what we can do for their health. And when we made that switch with our team, we saw like we went from almost nothing to nearly 60% of those leads that we captured ended up converting into customers of the organization, which is huge. We weren't spraying them with the fire hose. We were giving a light mist of what applied to them.
So there's something to learn from the book, The Art of War, in it,
Hmm.
know your enemy. So you want to know your customer. You want to know your donor.
Yes,
Our donors are customers. They're people who buy what we're selling, which is
right.
in transforming people's lives.
Mhm.
So, and in my experience, a confused mind says no.
Right.
They go to
100%.
good luck. Yeah. So
Hmm.
you talk about recognition versus
Hmm.
representation.
Right.
Will you explain that?
Sure. So, in a well-meaning intention of showing diversity and inclusion or whatever, whether it's racial, whether it's gender, whatever, we have taken to this idea of one African American, one Asian, one person in a wheelchair, one old, one young. And we try to represent everybody. And healthcare's notorious for this as well, but nonprofits do it as well, where you've got one of every color, size, shape, and age in the photos. And that is a well meant action of inclusion that I see everybody here. But a message to everybody does not allow me in those first few seconds to say, oh my gosh, they understand what it's like to be a woman my age and they have health services for me, as opposed to a 13-year-old or a man or whatever. And so, this idea of recognition is within 2 to 5 seconds, can someone see themselves in the image you've chosen, in the words you're using, in the tone of it, or the humor or not humor, in the colors, whatever. So it's important that, and it's hard to do because your resources are already threadbare. So you want to make everything work extra hard. But when it comes to marketing and messaging, each one needs to have one audience group in mind. No longer are the days of, I had a health client that's a nonprofit that their tagline literally for their marketing was, for any woman, any age, any stage of life, we're here for you. So eye roll worthy. Yes, exactly. But as a 50 something year old, I've got a different need than a 20-year-old. Or, I've had my kids. I'm a grandma now. I don't need, I'm not going to relate the same to a labor and delivery ad as the needs of me. So we change their ads, and their one image is a gal holding her hair up with a fan, fanning herself. No caption needed. No caption needed. If you're a woman or have lived with a woman or paid attention to your mother in your 50s, the fan with the hair up, no caption needed. I see myself, I recognize myself in that image.
So I've done keynote speaking, and the bigger the group, the quicker they turn on you. So
hmm
how do you know when people are either consciously or subconsciously opting out of your messaging?
This is getting harder and harder to do. I will caveat that. The lack of engagement at all with any of your content. There are a lot of people who will just observe and follow you. So no engagement on social media does not mean you should shut it down because it is one of your search results. But I think that the engagement or traffic, or eventually, if there's any conversion happening, if you have a million impressions and zero conversions, you have a message problem. It's not narrow enough to help people move the needle. It may be that you have way too many asks. To your earlier point, we joke about, oh, at some point our brain just goes, it really does. It's actually scientifically proven that if there's just too many options, your brain will just go, I'm sorry, I can't, because your brain processes and burns 20% of the calories you eat every day just to function. It's a very energy heavy, resource heavy instrument to be running. And now that there are so many other options easily available, if your website loads too slow, out. If I don't see myself in your message, out. I'm going to go look for something else. So, really high bounce rates might be an indication. Your lack of conversions, lack of engagement is also another thing that I would look at from the digital standpoint. If you're not getting donations from any of your campaigns, it's possible that your storytelling is off and you need to find a better way to connect emotionally with your audience. You're you feel before you think. So in that first few seconds, if there's something that gets your attention, and usually one of the things that really gets attention is something unexpected. So if a 89-year-old grandma rolls up on a Harley with all her leathers on, that's something a little less expected than maybe a 30-something-year-old male. So that juxtaposition or something that's a surprise is what gets the attention of the mind. And then you get curious or you feel an emotion or whatever. And that's the first hook. Then you've got to have a message that will go, oh, yes, I really do care about this cause. Or, wow, that was me. I wish I'd have known.
Yeah, yeah. So the title that people see when they came on here this out of here is 2 Seconds to Trust, Brain Science for Non-Profit Communication. So let's hone in on this 2 seconds to trust. What happens in those first few seconds when a person encounters our website, social post, email, or appeal, or in that important time when we're face to face talking to people?
Mhm. Well, the brain, like I said, is sorting. Is this for me? There's a part of our brain that is called the amygdala. It's kind of our safety center, and it's evaluating. It's that people call it the reptilian brain or our old brain or whatever. Back in the day, it was scanning for saber-toothed tigers or whatever, trying to attack. Um, and in today's day, it still has the same function, which is why people can feel a little bit less trusting because our brain is primarily wired to keep us safe. So they're looking, is this legit? Does it feel right? Is this for me? Do they understand? Do they have what I need? And so, in that first couple seconds, when you're face to face with somebody, digitally or in person, you have that moment to get their attention. And then you have the next few seconds to indicate that this is real, this is trustworthy, this is safe, and you have about 15 seconds total to get them to want to learn more. And sometimes it's as simple as that image with the, ooh, okay, they get where I'm at. Now I want to hear more. That's as fast as it can be. Sometimes it's the headline, or maybe it's the surprise of, your video, for instance. How many videos start with your logo and your URL or something about you? Okay, well, now we're 8 seconds in and you're done. But when you look at how Hollywood does movies or commercials or whatever, it starts halfway in the middle of a sentence of somebody speaking, and you're not even sure what it really is. And you're like, oh, what is that? Then you want to listen, and then your logo can come later. But it's just a moment of nuance of, is this relevant to the person I'm speaking to now?
Is this relevant? Oh my word. There's a lot of good sound bites to remind you that there's a full transcript if the nonprofitexchange.org, and you don't need to take notes for all of these great tips that we're getting today. So Sally, you have a website. What is the URL? For people on video, they can see it. People listening to the podcast can't see it. So tell people what they're going to find. What's the URL and what will they find when they get there?
So commonwellmarketing.com. It's like the community well, that idea of we all come together and work together to make this community better. So this has a lot of great resources. First of all, under our marketing toolkit, we've got handouts and white papers and webinars and all sorts of things. And it also explains our approach, our art and science approach to marketing and branding, to really helping organizations connect meaningfully. And in today's world, with the generations of givers, millennials and Gen A, those Gen Z, those folks are wired a little bit differently than the silent generation or the boomers who have been supporting nonprofits in this nation for decades and have been some of the biggest givers. I think 3 years ago, they were 70% or more of all giving to nonprofits in the US.
Wow.
We have to come along and be relevant and meaningful to the younger generation. So we've got a lot of information. That's exactly the kind of brand and messaging work that we do with nonprofits.
That's a really good website. There's lots of resources. And if people want to talk to you, I'm sure you respond to the messages. Let's have
Yes.
some fun. I'm going to give you a few rapid fire questions, just
Okay.
short answers. One word nonprofits overuse in their messaging.
Ooh. Now, this false this false scarcity or false urgency.
What word should they use more often?
That's a good one. Join us,
What?
join, or I don't know.
Uh-huh. Um, what's the best test for whether your message is clear?
Engagement and the people who are showing up are asking for exactly what you intended.
One sentence every nonprofit leader should be able to complete. It starts, people come to us because.
So I'm answering the fill in or the sentence.
People come to us because. Dot dot.
Yeah. Um, People come to us because. They are looking for a place to connect and have impact themselves.
So before we push send on one of our messages, what should we ask ourselves or somebody else before we send it?
Who is this for? One person, one face, one audience group.
That's a key message that stood out to me today. Sally, thank
Hmm.
you so much for helping us understand that communication is more than information. There's
Hmm.
a relationship part to this too. And
Right,
trust building is an important act of leadership. There are a lot
right.
in this short time, you've given us a lot of gems, a lot of things to think about, a lot of takeaways that we can act on. So be sure, and I think I misspoke your name. It's CommonWell. I live in the Commonwealth of Virginia, so I might have said Commonwealth. CommonWellMarketing.com. And it'll be on
Hmm.
the platform that you're listening to this or watching this on, Commonwell Marketing. So, Sally, you've helped me today reframe my whole communication thinking. And I've been doing this a long time. So you're not too old to learn something new. So thank you for the gift of knowledge and reframing today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor to be here.
Thank you for watching The Nonprofit Exchange.